Welcome back to Island Bike Life. Today we're taking a look at the all-new Santa Cruz Megatower. I got this bike from Grant and the guys down at Cowichan Cycles, located in Duncan, BC, here on Vancouver Island. This is an all-new bike from Santa Cruz, just released a couple of weeks ago. This one has been long in the chute, and I know a lot of people like myself have been waiting for this one to come out ever since the Hightower LT was released a couple of years back. In order to put this bike through its paces, I brought it back home, had it through some loops up at Dumont, but primarily down in the South Benson and Ridge Runner areas to put this enduro race bike to the test. This is a pretty unique bike from Santa Cruz in that it really is pretty purpose-built. Though they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, it does have some adjustability that the user can pick at the time of purchase and after the fact. One, it comes in both coil and air shock options depending on what you want to do. And you can tell by some of the finishing touches that this is meant not only to pedal, but Santa Cruz knows the owner of this bike is likely going to shuttle. It does have a nice down tube shuttle protector on there. Like most bikes these days, it comes with a flip chip on the shock that'll come in a high and low setting, which will change the geometry of the head tube and seat tube as well as the bottom bracket height. One feature that is pretty nice about this bike is it does have adjustable dropouts. You can move your axle and in turn increase or decrease your wheelbase by up to 10 millimeters. The idea behind this is that some riders may want to adjust this based on the terrain that they're racing or riding on. Maybe a little bit longer for more high-speed stability, or a little bit shorter for a little bit more playful field or technical riding. Now, something to keep in mind is that this, while is an easy change, is not something that you're going to do on the trail or on the fly. It's not going to require you to change your chain length, as the difference is 10 mils, like I said, or about the length of one link of a chain. The dropouts and hanger will change as one unit. They're combined, and because of the different lengths, you're also going to have to use a different rear brake mounting bracket. It doesn't move the brake caliber forward or backward, it simply adjusts the height depending on if you're in the forward or the rear setup on your dropouts. The bike that I took out was a size large, was set up in the high position and with the dropouts in the forward position. The travel on this bike is 160 in the rear and can be run anywhere between 160 and 180 up front. This will of course adjust your seat and head tube angle accordingly, so something to keep in mind if you're going to do a little bit of a custom setup. If I was to own or purchase this bike myself, I would absolutely go for a size XL. The reach was okay, but it would have been better, or at least I would have felt a little bit more comfortable on an extra large frame at 6'1" with a 33-inch inseam. The build on the bike that I had out was the carbon frame S build. This is the top build that you can get in the C frame before jumping up to the more expensive CC frame and XO1 build kit. This build is by no means cheap. It's not a budget build, but it does come with an excellent part spec that I have come to test on a variety of different bikes in one shape or the other, and it does perform really well. The suspension is split on the Santa Cruz, much like the Bronson and Nomad, depending on the build kit as well, with a Fox 36 grip damper up front, paired to a Roxox Super Deluxe Select Plus in the rear. Drivetrain is a full SRAM GX Eagle that includes the cassette, the derailleur, and the shifter, paired to a set of SRAM Dub Stilo cranks. Braking is done by a set of Codars and 200 mil centerline rotors, front and rear. The bar and stem combo is a race face effect, and that's paired to race face rims. They're the ARC 30s. These match up with a set of DT 370 hubs, obviously in boost spacing. And the tires are Maxxis Minion DHF DHR2s with wide trail sizing front and rear. Comes with a standard RockShox Reverb Stealth seat post paired to a WTB saddle. When it came to climbing on this bike, it didn't surprise me with the setup. Having ridden the Nomad and the Bronson with this new lower length setup, I knew going in that the setup was going to be very finicky. I found just with the way the kinematics and the leverage ratio works, it is very particular with the amount of air that you need in there for your particular riding weight. 10 psi one way or the other is either going to make your suspension way too stiff or way too soft, and is going to really affect your overall ride. So I did spend some time dialing that in. Once I had that set right around 32% sag, the pedaling was really quite nice. It wasn't incredibly stiff, and I did find myself thinking that on a long climb I would probably use the lockout, but for general climbing on single track and so forth, if your rear setup is appropriate, it's going to track really nice, and the pedaling is really quite good.
Fire road climbing isn't terrible on the Megatower, that's for sure. A little bit of suspension movement, not overly surprising. I think for an extended period, you might want to reach for the lockout. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
The climbing on this bike was really nice. The larger your frame, the little bit more slack that C-tube is going to get, so that's something to also keep in mind for larger riders. I didn't find it was bad at all, and in terms of these long travel 29 enduro bikes, it climbs better than some, though other bikes with a little bit more pedal friendly setup like the Switch Infinity Link on a Yeti, it doesn't really compare to that, but I knew that going into it, so I wasn't really considering it as a negative. For what this bike is intended to do, a pure enduro race bike, I was pleasantly surprised by the climbing. I could easily see myself taking this on long race days or super long days in the saddle. When it came to the trail riding aspect of my review, I took it from the standpoint that this bike isn't really meant to be a trail riding kind of bike, but if you did only have one bike, would it perform in this environment? And the short answer is yes, absolutely. I found that it was quite playful. The dropouts in the shorter setting were nice, though if it was my own bike, I'd probably run it in the longer setting. I'm just used to a longer wheelbase with my current bike, and I don't find it deters from the trail riding characteristics that much. The bike is a little bit heavy, but all of these new Santa Cruz bikes with this new lower link on their long travel bikes are a little bit heavier and have a lower center of gravity for that downhill performance. I didn't find it was too long. The bike itself was paired nicely to an appropriate bar width, so I was able to move around the trail pretty easily. I had heard and read some comments about small bump sensitivity, going over small chatter and so forth. In the trail riding area, I didn't find that was the case. Because the suspension and the way the VPP works, it really is a very engaging suspension platform. So instead of being overly stiff, or in the case of some bikes being very wallowy in corners or G-out type situations, I find the VPP suspension setup really is quite engaging. You feel yourself moving through the trail really nicely, but not in a slow or sluggish type of way, which you can sometimes get on other bikes. In the end, for trail riding, this bike will get it done no problem, but you need to go into it knowing that this is a 160 mil enduro race bike. So if you're going on a long 3-hour cross-country loop where you're going to be doing a lot of pedaling, you're going to have a lot of fun, but it's not going to be the most enjoyable ride out there. And this is probably not the bike for that particular situation if that's the way you ride on a daily basis. Now, when it comes to descending, that's what this bike is meant to do, and it does it absolutely wonderfully. I previously mentioned about the suspension feel and how it is very engaging. Some of these other long travel bikes, they all ride a little bit differently. Some of them are very stiff, some of them really dead in the trail and make everything seem very flat. And the VPP setup on this bike and the Fox 36 up front kind of find a happy balance. I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days, and the only way I can really describe it is that rather than feeling like you're flattening the trail out or being sucked into everything, you're really just being very composed through all of the trail. On small bumps, chattering over large root or rock gardens, the suspension is very lively once it's set up appropriately. It does track very nicely at speed, and on bigger G-outs or more technical, rocky sections of trail, instead of feeling harsh, you're able to really feel and push the bike through these sorts of situations versus getting held up or feeling very wallowy, like I did find was the case a little bit with the Scott Ransom in certain situations. Unlike my own personal SB150 that tends to just fly over things, I definitely felt like the ride on the Megatower was a little bit more engaging. I'm hesitant to say that it was funner. It was just different. It took me a little bit to get used to, but it definitely was a very engaging and very fun ride. When you look at the Megatower in its comparative category, it's definitely in that upper to middle range in terms of price point. You are getting a pretty average build kit for bikes of this travel and in this price range. There's going to be some brands that are going to be a little bit cheaper for sure, but there's going to be others that are more expensive, like Yeti, for example. What you do get for the price that you pay, though, is that Santa Cruz build quality. Their frames are incredibly well made. You can tell when you hold them. They're very robust feeling. They're very well made. The attention to detail truly is there all around. When you get a Santa Cruz frame, it does have a lifetime warranty for the original owner. And speaking from personal experience, having had a warranty issue with my previous Hightower, the Santa Cruz warranty is probably one of the best in the business. I had zero issues there whatsoever. So what are my final thoughts here? Well, having been on most of these modern long travel 29er enduro bikes, the Megatower is definitely up there in the top three, at least in my experience and my personal view. The riding that I did have on it really did shine. I went into it knowing that the pedaling platform on the VPP is okay. It's not the greatest on the market for sure, but once you have that rear suspension dialed in, you're going to be able to pedal up just about anything no problem, and it does have that lockout if you need it. General trail riding, really good, really fun. It'll get you there on a long day, but if you only do cross-country type riding, this is not the bike for you. No matter what kind of terrain you're looking at, it's going to be way too much bike. But if you're an enduro racer or just want to go and have as much fun as you possibly can going downhill, you should definitely take a look at this one. It is a great bike. It has a lot of versatility with the various shock options that you can get from the factory, as well as the flip chips and the shock and in the dropouts. It gives it some versatility there that other bikes in this category don't really have. Whether or not you use that, I think most riders will probably find one setting or setup that they like and just leave it at that. But it does have that option if you want it. So yeah, the all new Santa Cruz Megatower is one hell of a bike all around. If you're looking to get one, you should probably do it soon. I suspect they're going to be sold out in pretty short order and are likely to be on the list of top enduro bikes of the year for a lot of different companies and a lot of different magazines. If you're looking to take this one out for a spin, like I said, go see Grant and the guys down at Couch and Cycles in Duncan. They'll set you up and you can take this one out for a rip. If you like what I'm doing here, think about hitting the subscribe and the like button. Leave me a comment down below and come and find me on Instagram. And as always, thanks again for watching. Now let's go hit the trails.